Ayurveda, the system of health and healing from India, says you're not just a physical body and you're not this mind and they don't talk to each other, but you are body and mind. And the mind is both intellectual thinking apparatus and an emotional feeling apparatus.
Cue music. Places, everybody places. We're starting in 3, 2.
It's time for Life Interrupted Radio, a show dedicated to practical skills for your mind, body, and soul. We're hoping we'll go in one ear and stay there. Here's the host of the show, Sharon Saylor.
Welcome to the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio, where we look at the rise of autoimmune disorders. The NIH estimates nearly 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder. To put that in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. You'll be as surprised as I was to find out what autoimmune entails. I brought together top experts that range from doctors, specialists, nutritionists, researchers, and even those recovering from autoimmune to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information about autoimmunity and how to live your life uninterrupted. So let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio. I'm your host, Sharon Saylor from SharonSaylor.com. I'm back here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest, enjoying our summers here. I love to flee the hot country during the summer, for sure. I'm not made for humidity, to be honest, but I think that's one thing that people with autoimmune conditions sometimes fall into, is being more sensitive to those. So that's one question we're going to have for today's expert guest, because she is just a beautiful, beautiful person. We've had her on before, and I invited her back to talk about all things autoimmune because she really knows a lot. So we're just going to go wherever the conversation leads, and I just bless her for being so open to being able to, sure, let's just go for the questions as they come. Her name is Acharya Shunya, and she is one of the extraordinary teachers of living embodied wisdom of Ayurveda. As people who are familiar with the show know, that sometimes I'm a creative speller, creative pronouncing. So anyway, but Shunya, she transmits it through the roots of her ancient family lineage, and she has a brand new book. We've talked about her book before, but I am such a huge fan of her book. It's called Ayurveda Lifestyle Wisdom, a complete prescription to optimize your health, prevent disease, and live with vitality and joy. And she just brings so much joy into our lives here at the Autoimmune Hour. I had to have her back. So welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to be back on the show.
It's such a pleasure to be talking to you, Sharon, again. I do remember how much we connected last time, and then we kept talking afterwards, even when the show was over.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I just love. And I said, we've got to have you back, because I thought today would be sort of like a pick your brain day, because there's so many questions that have popped up for me since our last chat. But first, share with the audience your own journey, because I know you've struggled with some health conditions as well.
I was fine until about the age of 13 or 14, Sharon, and then I started having pain, first in my lower back, and then the pain was everywhere.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't even move my fingers. I couldn't walk, and I had severe inflammation. And it was only many years later, because Western medicine was not my go-to medicine, because I was born in a traditional family. It was many years later that I found out that I have a genetic aberration, I have an autoimmune condition, and my body likes to, my immune system likes to attack my own, body. And that was interesting. On the other side, I was young, I was just blossoming and budding into my youth, and to not be able to walk, to have so much pain, to not have a normal life, as I, stepped into young womanhood, was devastating for me, both physically, of course, but emotionally.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of low self-esteem and depression because of that. But, thankfully, we're going to talk about hope and happiness and solutions here, not just about the sorrow, because I think now, many years later, 4 decades later, I know that was an opportunity for me to step into who I am today, a healer, a teacher, a giver of hope. If I hadn't experienced that pain for myself and that disability, I really wouldn't have followed this path, probably, to something my family did. And they never forced me or coerced me to be who I am. But it became my vocation, my passion, my motivation to share about Ayurveda, and not only Ayurveda, but its sister sciences of yoga and Vedanta, which is a spirituality that connects us to, universal consciousness. If I hadn't benefited from the practices that we can talk about today, such as eating foods that counter inflammation and eating foods, superfoods that actually support my immune system in becoming in the right way intelligent, not the wrong way intelligent, and not attacking crazily my own body, but really protecting me and supporting me. So Ayurveda then actually rescued me in the beginning. And so did the art of yoga, and then spirituality from India, Vedanta, which explained to me that everything is an opportunity. And here I am talking to you, Sharon, feeling quite good about my life, actually.
We've traveled a similar path, even though we've came from very different cultures. And mine started when I was 16. I didn't know it was an autoimmune back then. No one told me. It was only recently somebody said, well, Sharon, that's an autoimmune condition. I said, no one ever told me. Isn't that surprising? And then I heard you say one thing that I think I've heard a number of people who go through any sort of chronic condition say, and that is that it's either led them into a work they're passionate about, or it's changed their life in some way that they know what their mission is. And I think that, to me, is always fascinating when I hear people say that, because for me, absolutely, with the Autoimmune Hour, a lot of people know that this isn't my day job. I do corporate training and communications, and I'm a top body language expert. But when I got sick myself, I was so frustrated with what I found out there that, as I will say, when you're very, very sick, and I was thrown right into what I'll call the white coat authority, not really being strong enough to do a lot of critical thinking at that time about what is really going on here. And that's what I want to talk to you today about, is how do we bring in other ways of healing, because that's a huge question there, Shunya. But let's just talk a little bit about what are some things that Ayurveda can do for us.
Well, we always have choices. And sometimes if there are listeners, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners have tuned in because they have this condition, and when they hear honest, truthful, genuine conversations between two souls who are really, truly presenting themselves in all their vulnerability, then I hope that they will not only explore what I have to say, some other options that have been around for thousands of years and they work, but they will actually let go of any kind of authority that talks down to them and tells them what they should think and how they should feel and how they should suppress their pain.
Oh, bravo.
In my journey, excuse me, thank you. And in my journey of recovering from my pain and inflammation, I'm going to start in the deep end here, Sharon, because when you were talking about how we had similar journeys, you evoked something in me, and I had to hold my heart there. So I'm just going to jump in to tell you that one of my understandings has been, because Ayurveda, the system of health and healing from India, says you're not just a physical body and you're not this mind and they don't talk to each other, but you are body and mind. And the mind is both intellectual thinking apparatus and an emotional feeling apparatus. Plus it has memories, not only from this lifetime, but several lifetimes. So it's a pretty busy equipment that we have, but you are consciousness, a spirit, and all of this comes together to create you. So look at all these areas for the pain. And one of the realizations that I came upon in my 30s, not when I was 13 or 23, but in my 30s, that I don't like myself.
Wow.
And I had given myself up to all kinds of unconscious wolves in my life, the authority figures, and society can be one such authority, and various other characters. And I had to begin looking at why I was attacking myself And I'm not trying to go into some woo-woo land here, but I really had to say, if my immune system is attacking me, if I have the problem, I have the solution, period. And this is the teaching I get from Ayurveda and the greater Vedic wisdom. I am the solution. And I started offering myself radical acceptance, radical love. And as I've done this, I couldn't lift my arm, and I can demonstrate. I can lift my arm. It's like my life has just started changing. And so since you bring up the white coat authority syndrome, I think that triggered in me that I only bow to God.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. Love this idea of radical love and radical acceptance. Let's dive deeper into that, because I think whether you have an autoimmune or not, there are a lot of people walking around that constantly, I'll say, beating themselves up for a variety of reasons, whether they have autoimmune or a chronic condition or not. Let's talk a little bit about what was your first steps when you came to this realization, okay, it's time?
First, I had to acknowledge it, that I am in a subservient situation and it is not my nature. So the Vedic system of India, which is known as the Vedas, or the Eastern philosophy of India, teaches us a unique word called dharma. And dharma can be defined as righteousness, nobleness, harmony, but actually dharma means the essence of what makes us us. So if the sun gave up its heat and fire, it would no longer be the sun. It would be cold and pathetic, body of something hanging out in the Milky Way. Because it's radiant and fiery, because it dares to do that, it is the sun. And so Ayurveda reminds us that we're actually sovereign beings and we are not meant for emotional or other servitude. And we are here to truly, explore life, enjoy ourselves, do our duties, love, engage, serve, and then move on. And as I started learning this, I first had to acknowledge that I have unconsciously or consciously accepted authorities of men over my being, husbands, and I am happily married, by the way. But this marriage is coming not from servitude, but from equality. You see what I mean?
Right.
So I had to work at it. I had to work at not other people enslaving me, but where I had given up my power. So that's number one. So we can say you enslaved me, and the other is, wait a minute, I gave up my power. That's another thing. And the number two was I did some exercises, like, say I was talking to you and I started feeling smaller than you. I would step back and see myself as big as the universe. That kind of put things in perspective, Sharon. I would get really big, that's my whole universe. And then I could talk to you more than an equal. I could just be myself in a spontaneous way with you. That's one thing. So I did some of these exercises, and mostly knowledge, where I knew that every blade of grass is sovereign and powerful. So I have no business feeling small at this point. And your degrees and your majestic home or your beautiful body, these are good karmic gifts for you. Enjoy them. I'm complete in myself. So it was a understanding. And thirdly, I started just making this a very important value, sovereignty, power. And then I would not negotiate on that. And gradually, it feels like my immune system really likes me now. So I don't know if this helps, because I could go on, but I'm just having this really out-of-the-box conversation with an out-of-the-box woman.
That's what I love about our conversations. We need to take a quick commercial break, guys. We'll be back in just a couple minutes with Acharya Shunya. And because, as you could tell, we just love going everywhere. And what I want to talk to her about was some of the things she said about just stepping into who she was. I think that's really critical, and we'll talk about how we do that. Because for me, that too was a turning point in my healing, is when I changed the mind and the thinking and some of the stories I was telling myself. So we'll be right back.
Life Interrupted Radio will return after these messages from our sponsors. It's great sponsors like these that keep this show coming to you every week. Be sure and stop by lifeinterruptedradio.com to learn more.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living, a chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
I'm Fidel Mshombo. I was born in a city called Bukavu in the Congo. We were a loving family, and then, boom, everything that I had disappeared in a single day. People think that when you are a refugee and they resettle you to America, and all your problems are done. They don't understand that that's the beginning of everything. I was not born a refugee. I was made one.
It's time we welcome refugee families with open arms. Learn more at embracerefugees.org, brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio. I'm your host, Sharon Saylor from SharonSaylor.com, and we're Acharya Shunya, and she is just an extraordinary woman and an amazing teacher who is just the living embodiment of Ayurveda. As before we had to take that quick commercial break, we were talking about things that really are profound. I think the people, it's that critical moment, it was about your third step that you said, where you are able to shift your mind and say, no, I am this, I am that, whatever it is. I am sovereign. I am here. I have an important mission to pursue. And I think a lot of people miss that point. How does it happen? For me, it was just almost like an awakening. It was a moment where I had an exchange with someone, and for whatever reason, I asserted my power and my authority at that moment. I was in my early 30s as well. And that's when it snapped into position, like, what have I been doing all this time? So let's talk a little bit about those moments where we're able to say, hey, I am what I am, and I am solid in knowing, and I do have a mission and a purpose. So let's talk a little bit about that.
The Vedas, or this body of spiritual wisdom from India, from which Ayurveda comes forward, says that we are that sovereign, boundless, inexhaustible source of joy, energy, and bliss. And it declares very boldly that we can worship God anywhere, in any form, but God also dwells in our heart. And how do you want your God to be treated? How do you want the God to eat? How do you want the God to sleep? How do you want to clothe your God? And, these were very profound. And even though I listened to these teachings from the mouth of my amazing, gentle guru, my teacher, my grandfather, who I lovingly call Baba in the book, we all do that. We carry our personal ignorance around like our favorite comfort blanket, And so my beautiful blanket was that I'm small, I'm broken, I need other people to fill me up, as we all do. And, and all those things sound good, but they don't mean anything to me. Like, they're wonderful, they sound wonderful. And I was still young. But then, that didn't work for me, being small, because I was going against the truth that I'm amazingly big. So it didn't work to be ashamed and apologetic beyond a point, because the fact is that we are all here to learn. And there is no judgment here. If we don't want judgment for others, we definitely don't want to judge ourselves, because, again, the Vedas said there is only one self. So how can I just be goody-goody to the world out there in the name of religion or spirituality, but not be good enough to me? We're all, it's a radical one. And radical seems to be my favorite word this morning.
I guess so.
But it's one. It's one. And Dharma also includes a sense of responsibility or accountability towards the universe, towards other beings, other creatures, other nature. So when I look at myself today, Sharon, and to all the listeners, I'm not just somebody tooting my horn, sitting there being filled with my own ego-tripped power. I'm a responsible mother, wife, teacher, cousin, citizen, pet owner, gardener. I look after every beetle in my home. You know, I have sensitivity, I have compassion, and I do my part. And after that, stuff happens. Mistakes can occur, but not from a conscious space. And so, you know, I do my part, and then I rest, and then I acknowledge that I'm a divine being trying to do my part. So there is some accountability and responsibility, which is of a dharmic or ethical nature. And the more I do that, the more I do my part in alignment with the cosmos, not just my small self, but the cosmos, not just with my Indian self, or I'm not a leader of women power. I'm a leader for consciousness. And I believe we do our part. And when we do our part, we are supported and we can just flow. Have I become too esoteric, or could I explain myself to you? I wonder.
Yes. That's wonderful, because I think a lot of people get too caught up in the judgments of how we are supposed to be. And those are imposed on us from someplace else. And I loved your explanation of, I'll say, a bigger, more enlightened way to look about how we enter in and how we engage. And I don't want to use the how we're supposed to be on that either, because that both of those I think are kind of, that the word suppose is a little judgmental. But being able to have the power and the wisdom to step outside of all those preconceived notions of how we're supposed to be, whatever that is, and being able to step into it. And one of the things that helped my healing a lot was stepping beside, not only accepting who I am and what I'm here for and understanding that, but also having the courage to give voice to that. And I know you are just a powerhouse in giving voice to having people have their own courage behind it, because to me it's really important for people to speak up. And one of the things I hear a lot are people saying, regardless of what it is, maybe it's a well-meaning friend or a medical professional, you need to do X. But you are all about trusting that place within us that tells us whether that particular thing at that moment, which may be very valid in some circumstances, is right for us. So let's talk a little bit about how do we know how to trust ourselves too? Because I know we're getting quite spiritual here, but when I have you, I just love to go into these deep spiritual conversations about that place of knowing. And then if we've never used it before, how do we trust it?
I'm glad you asked me that question, because it's pivotal. Because it's a question of trusting others, they must be knowing more, or trusting ourselves. And how do we know if we're getting the correct guidance from within? For that, it's a two-stepped process. And I'm talking like I know it, but I just put the number out too. But I think the first one is quietening some of the noises, So like voluntarily not gossiping, voluntary switching off the television, on a voluntary basis, just closing the eyes for a minute or taking a stroll in nature. That quietens the mind from the superficial noises. Not always reading every magazine, every book out there, because those are more sounds of others. So, I did go through a period of like, I was a soccer mom and a healer and a teacher and a spiritual guru, but I was still going inward, And it's like, I have some inner voices that I want to listen to before I read one more book. Well, I hope people read my book, but it's like after you have some inward movement, not just reading book after book after book to figure out what to think. So it's like go inward. And then once you're inward, you will know, you will hear there's a persistent, silent inner guidance that has been with you since you were age 2 or 3, or even when you were born. You just don't remember. And it says, do this, don't do that. Forgive that person, let it go, drop it. Don't eat that extra pie. You don't need it. And start listening to it. And as we listen to it, the clue is, are you listening to yourself or did you make it up? If you become restful more quietude, more peaceful inwards, you can then trust it some more. If you become more agitated and crazy and the inner voice says, pick up a gun and shoot everyone, and as a result, you land up in the jail or you become more anxious or paranoia or schizophrenic, obviously that's a hallucination. But the inner voice is peaceful, and next, very profound, it has no enemies. It doesn't want to prove a point. It's not the voice of ego. It's the voice of spirit. So you might be really mad at your dad or cousin or somebody or your neighbor, but the inner voice will say, they don't know any better. They're not evil. They're ignorant. And blood pressure down.
I love that. It doesn't have to prove a point. I think to me that was a critical thing I want to reiterate that you said to guys out there, because this idea of how do you know it's your voice, it's your spirit telling you something, and that it doesn't have to prove a point, I think is very profound. Part of that is when I learned to discern, is this someone else's voice in my head, whether it's someone I know or not, it could be a television commercial, whatever it is, or is it my inner knowing? And I didn't ever discern that until just now, and I want to reiterate it because when I heard it, I went, yes! That's one of the answers. So that's what I love about I know we go down rabbit holes, everybody, but when we're together, I just love it. We need to take another quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to get more into the physical part of it, about understanding how we can live it with vitality and understanding some of the lifestyle changes we can make using Ayurveda that are simple and easy. Like last time she was on, she told me about turmeric, and I'll tell you, that changed a lot. So we're going to get into some really great tips right after this quick commercial break about living with vitality as well, because we've talked now about our mindset, and I just feel like we're ready to move into, okay, now let's begin to integrate it into our lifestyle as well. So we'll be right back.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
What are all the things you witness online in a day? Cats playing piano, selfies on your feed, your friend's picture being turned into a nasty meme that's been shared 50 times, 51, 52. When someone's being bullied online, it's hard to know what to do. Now you can speak up with the witness emoji. It looks like an eye in a speech bubble, and it's in the symbol section near the clocks in your phone. You'll let the world know it isn't cool, and you'll let your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio. I'm your host, Sharon Saylor from SharonSaylor.com. And today we've been talking with the very wise Acharya Shunya, and she is the author of the Ayurveda Lifestyle Wisdom, a complete prescription to optimize your health, prevent disease, and live with vitality and joy. She's just an extraordinary teacher that we have access to about all things Ayurveda and more, much, much more. You've probably heard so far that she is just wise, wise, wise. And I just love all of the insights that I get when I chat with her. First, we were talking a little bit about mindset and courage and being able to know who we are and stand up for ourselves during this time. Now I want to get into some of the lifestyle tips, too, because on the last show you shared some that I implemented and just had amazing, profound effects. And they were so easy to implement. It wasn't like, Sharon, go run a marathon. Absolutely not. They were just easy to implement. And I think the one that I tried first, and I was just spurred me on to more, was just that little bit of turmeric in the morning. And so let's chat about all these simple little things that you can do that can lead to just ease and a lifestyle of vitality.
Especially, I would like to offer something for the autoimmune condition to keep up with the theme that we began around. What I felt was like just standing for ourselves and loving ourselves more. And I feel that one way we can demonstrate that to ourselves, Sharon, is by offering ourselves the following things. One is like pure foods, and as pure as they can be, and ideally seasonal. And because Mother Nature is very intelligent, and when she chooses to grow certain foods in a certain season and not in another season, there's a reason for it. So we should eat seasonal foods in the season that we live in, not because they're imported from another season in another part of the hemisphere.
Good point.
That's one thing.
Good point.
So we should know. Good point. So we should know what microclimate we live in. And, it's easy to look up, which climate are we in, fall, summer, late winter, early winter. And then I hope that if, our listeners do explore my book, Ayurveda Lifestyle Wisdom, they can just turn the page to a certain seasonal diet. And then no matter what cuisine you are eating, Alaskan food, Chinese food, Indian food, American cuisine, just try to incorporate those seasonal foods. And it's easy to do. You don't have to change anything else. But if it says more greens in a certain season, go for it. And what you will find is that your overall health that year keeps improving. And then every year, you don't age that fast. And many small aches, pains, colds, coughs, allergies, fever, ear infections, bronchitis, all of these things will just disappear. I do want to show off a little bit, Sharon, to say, and it's a good show off, it has a purpose, that I have this my wisdom school, Vedika Global in California, for 10 years. We're in our 10th year. And I've not had to take a single day off because of some seasonal cold, cough, flu, fever.
Fantastic.
I'm a human. Yeah. So the seasonal diet can feed us. And this diet is not something I discovered. It's been known for thousands of years by the sages, and they shared it. And I just made sure that I can communicate, because communication is important for Sharon. I'm glad. That's why we're having such a fun time. I actually try to make it accessible for, my readers right here in America, where I live and work. So that's one thing. And then gift ourselves some rest. And it's really important to sleep by 10 p.m. and, wake up no later than 6 a.m. or as early as we want, but no later than 6 a.m. Now, this may sound very surprising, Sharon, and we can talk.
I haven't heard it said that way.
Yeah. And recently I found a lot of research saying that our sleep cycle, if we stay up late and don't wake up early enough, it actually affects our liver's fat metabolism, and it disturbs our deeper systemic metabolism at the organ level. So it is corroborating what Ayurveda has been saying all along. And Ayurveda says that if you sleep by 10 and wake up by 6 a.m. or earlier, but no later, you actually allow your entire body and its biocircadian rhythm to stay in order. So I'm hoping that after listening to this, people will, follow suit or read my book on sleep and make some changes. But a well-rested body, which is my body, I protect my sleep time, period. I protect it, so then my inflammation, my immunity, everything is working at an optimal level. Sharon, have you ever had some insight into how your sleep is affecting your challenge, for example?
Oh, absolutely. Last time we chatted, you said set a bedtime and stick to it. And I remember that. And when I did set a bedtime, because I do still have difficulty falling asleep, I still have to work at calming my mind and meditating before I go to sleep. Earlier, though, when the illness was, I'll say, at its height, I think staying asleep was difficult. I would wake up in some pain and things like that, and so staying asleep. Those are the two things I find about the sleep with an autoimmune condition, is usually falling asleep.
Right. Right. And so there is a recipe that I've shared in the book. I prefer using cow milk for the recipe for those who are intolerant to that or do not wish to drink it for very real ethical reasons, can also go for almond milk. And both of these will help, and we boil it. So we bring it to a hot boiling point, a cup of milk. And then I would suggest you add some nutmeg powder, like a good half teaspoon of it, or grate some fresh nutmeg on it. And also add some cane sugar, organic cane sugar. And if you have handy some cardamom powder for fragrance, if you have it, that's fine. And just drink this milk around when you're going to bed, before you brush your teeth, etc. And this milk, Sharon, will help you sleep quickly and in a sound sleep. So maybe next time we talk, you can tell me if this worked for you, this recipe. And it's also in the book.
Yeah, absolutely. I will try it. And I just want to point out that when we're talking almond milk, you're talking about raw, homemade type of almond milk, not the stuff that when you read the back, it looks like processed food.
Oh, dear, yes, absolutely. The whole almond milk, and you can find any YouTube video to tell you how to do it. It's really easy. So absolutely, there is nothing artificial in Ayurveda. And why would you want to do that? That's not the way to love yourself. And another way to love yourself is to have food, good sleep, and then the third one is sex, Sharon.
All right.
That Ayurveda wants to look at. Interesting, right? So shall I jump into it?
Yeah, let's go for it.
I love it. The text scriptures of Ayurveda from thousands of years ago talk about willingness to have sex only with someone who respects us. So there it is again, more empowerment for men and women, and to withdraw sexual engagement if you feel emotionally undervalued. So I think we give away some part of ourselves when we engage in intimacy without the respect and the due spiritual reverence that goes with it. So that's fascinating.
I'm so glad you bring that up about making sure that it's a mutually respectful connection that you have with an intimate partner, because I think too often, there again, it gets back to this radical love of ourselves. I was reading recently about a study that was fascinating to me, because oftentimes with autoimmune, that intimate part of our life becomes more difficult or challenging. But I was reading recently about a study that was talking about just the power of what I'll call connection with people, including friends like you and I who are at a distance, can be very intimately involved, as well as, my neighbors and friends here, and how powerful and healing that connection can be. Let's chat a little bit about the greater scope of how powerfully healing connection can be.
Yeah, and the system of yoga from India, which is a sister science of Ayurveda, has talked about the sexual energy not just being in the sexual organs of the male and the female for the human being and for all living beings, but actually it lives in each and every cell. And then the energy, if we try to harness it, can actually move upwards. So there are these 7 chakras, and it can move from like the lower chakra to higher and higher chakras. So when it comes to your heart area, your heart opens. When it travels to, your 6th eye, you become like so creative. And when it travels up the way to your 7th chakra, to your crown chakra, it's like a chakra is like a spiritual center. When it travels up to in the 7th chakra, you have a grand spiritual awakening. And when I mean grand, I mean it's grand enough for us to connect with the all, or we have an understanding of the inherent connections. We don't look different, or we don't behave differently, but we experience this sense of unity and oneness and an inherent compassion for all beings, because we are vibrating here and not just there, where we need like actually a physical contact of a few minutes to feel that oneness. But when the sexual energy or the energy period has reached here, which is also sexual, but also spiritual, it creates an ongoing union. Isn't that fascinating? I felt, wow. And that is why many great spiritual beings whose sexual energy has gone inwards will have beautiful connection, as you said, with each other, with people, with communities, with art, culture, and the subtle elements, the wind and the earth and the fire. And there is no reason, if age has moved along and we don't have a sexual partner, or because we have a body that is not supportive of intimacy, to stop having connection. So thank you for bringing that up. I think the whole universe is sexual.
Exactly. I wanted to bring that up because I think there are times in our healing process where it's just not feasible from a physical standpoint, but still not to give that up. And that if you are lucky enough to have an intimate partner, there's plenty of ways to maintain that connection while you're going through the healing process. And I think that's critically important for people to know, because as you know, it can feel kind of lonely when you're not feeling good. It can feel you're thinking about yourself a lot, like, ache, pain here or there. You tend to get sort of drawn inward, and it can feel a little lonely if you're not careful.
And once again, Ayurveda says that when we're going through this difficult period, what we want to do is we may not be able to address the pain right away, but can we enhance our well-being? So one of the things we could do is, after shower, dress up in your nice clothes. And so as much as possible, but they are clean and they are bright colored, or whatever colors are fancy, but they give us happiness. Similarly, Ayurveda talks about bells and sounds in the background while we are eating food, and fine cutlery every day. Ayurveda talks about, perfumes and wearing flowers in the hair. I mean, you read it and you think, are you medicine? Are you even a medicine? Are you just teaching us how to pamper ourselves? But, somewhere, no matter what we're dealing with, especially if we're dealing with a chronic autoimmune condition, it comes again and again to different ways to show love to yourself. And because somewhere, in my belief, I had decided that I'm not lovable. And I don't know if it was a past life decision that I came into, or it was something that happened to me, but it happened, and I need to now acknowledge that and really be in a loving relationship with my smaller self, my day-to-day struggling self.
I love bringing the ancient wisdoms because they've been around for thousands and thousands of years for a reason. It's because they work. So
they work. And I talk about all of this in my chapter on food, and I go on and on into it because I feel like, over the years at my foundation, Vedika Global, we've, come across thousands of people who are suffering from chronic digestive pain or, ulcerative colitis or other autoimmune conditions. And we put that condition aside for a little bit, and we teach them this way of life, which is artful, beautiful, indulgent, and connected to nature and her rhythms. And every time we have found a radical improvement in even the blood tests and other symptoms. And I guess that's why I've become a little confident around everything. And my book came after almost 2.5 decades of experiment with it, and again seeing the results. So it was not something I learned and then I wanted to write a book. It was like I saw it change my life, I saw it change countless lives, and I knew that Ayurveda was functioning at a fundamental truth level, and that it gives back the authority to us to plant the garden of health in our life the way we want to do it. One change at a time, one cutlery at a time. And it sounds so simple, but it's so profound. It's so profound.
It was for me, and it's interesting that you mentioned also about clothing. This is strange. My particular condition involves your skin, and so I did have a lot of very sensitive skin, rashes and things like that through the healing process there for a while. And it was difficult to actually even wear clothes, let alone feel like you wanted to dress up. But I did find that even though maybe I'll say I went for the more comfy clothes, the brighter the color, the more, I'll say the more sassy the color it was, the better I felt, even though, in all honesty, a lot of them that were, well, I'll just call knitwear or something that I could wear on my very sensitive skin. So as you were saying, it doesn't have to be, couture types of things to make you feel good, because it was fun. The other thing I was able to wear was a lot of bright, colorful scarves, and that just really, there was something about those sorts of things that lifted my spirit as well as were fun. It gave me that moments of fun throughout the whole process, which I think we often overlook as we're healing, is that moments of having fun.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a spiritual teacher, and I have many disciples, and I'm a guru to them. And, and we believe in simple living, high thinking. But I remember telling this one disciple of mine, can you go and buy a red dress? Can you wear red lipstick? And she was like shocked. Here she was thinking, I'll tell her to just dress in white and, be simple. And I'm like, you need red because you need some energy, my dear. You're gone on the other side, and get rid of that black jacket, black trousers, black everything. I love black. It looks very fashionable, but you're not there yet. You need the bright daffodil yellow and the blue and the goldens. And so she laughed, and she understood what her teacher was trying to tell her. And I told her to gift herself flowers with lots of colors. Nature has gone out of her way. She has a buffet for us. Why have we secluded ourselves to this, plain, colorless life? Let's do it.
It's so funny you mentioned flowers, because I loved going to my farmer's market, and every week I pick up a whole bouquet of flowers, and usually they're so large. They're at the farmer's market, you get so many flowers. I end up with like 3 or 4 arrangements about the house. Yeah. And it's always so wonderful feeling to walk into the house, and right there on your kitchen table is a beautiful bouquet of flowers that are for that season. The lilies are out right now, which just make the house smell beautiful. So that's, I love doing that. So treat yourself to those sorts of things.
Yes. So and Ayurveda wants to address these things along with the seasonal food and the sleep and the connections, intimate or otherwise. Very wholesome, very organic, very natural, and also a relationship with the sun and the moon. So if we wake up earlier, we can see the rising sun. We can also probably go out and witness the rising moon. And these things are not cosmetic. All of nature is attuned to them. But we kind of shut our windows, switch on the television or on the internet, and we're in our own virtual universe, and none of this matters. But for me and for my students and for the people who are getting better with Ayurveda, this is all free medicine. Spend time with it. We meditate under it. And you don't need to change your religion or become a vegetarian or a vegan. I mean, those are all your preferences. But it's definitely a connection to a larger, grander canvas that's always there for us, always.
And I want to mention that you don't have to have a view to enjoy the sunrise. I think you taught me that the one time. I was like, well, I don't live, in a high-rise tower, or I don't live on the ocean. I can't see the sunrise, and that's not the point. You can be enjoying that change of light and that time of day, and even if you don't quite have the view from your patio.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Once somebody got hold of my YouTube videos or books from a prison, because books or prisons allow that kind of certain creative time or some. I don't know how, but that person was becoming my student in a prison in California. And then his mother called me on his behalf to say he wants to know how he can get up and connect with the sun because he has no window. Mm. And it was a moment for me. And I said, well, turn towards the east, close your eyes and feel the power of 1,000,000 suns in your heart. And that should do it. And after he got released, the first thing he did was came and met me at my school. Yeah.
When you said that, all of a sudden my heart got really warm. It's fascinating how quickly that whole feeling can happen, even though it's not sunrise. But it's so amazing to me how quickly that can happen. We need to take one final quick commercial break, and then we'll be back, folks. And she's going to be able to, Shunya's going to tell us all about her school and how we can learn more and how we can get her book, too. So we'll be right back.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Change and growth are part of natural life and also part of your spiritual life. Everyone needs support and guidance, especially during life passages. Upgrade yourself with the OMTimes Experts program. With OMTimes Experts, you have access to the best intuitive coaches, spiritual teachers, counselors, astrologists, and oracles. Our team was carefully selected so you can trust. Find out more at experts.omtimes.com.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Hey, Dr. Phil here. You know, I help people solve difficult problems every day, but one problem has me stumped: childhood hunger. Nearly 16 million children in America struggle with it. Luckily, the Feeding America network of local food banks collects surplus food, giving hope to hungry children and their families. But they need your help. Join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio. I'm your host, Sharon Saylor from SharonSaylor.com, and today we're talking to Acharya Shunya, and she is the author of just the awesome book, Ayurveda Lifestyle Wisdom, a complete prescription to optimize your health, prevent disease, and live with vitality and joy. And when we get together, check through the records because we've had her on before, but when we get together, as you could tell, we just go any place that the Spirit guides us. I just love that. But I want to be sure and talk about your school and how people can learn more about it and you, and where can they get the book?
The book is available everywhere. On Amazon.com, you can look up by my name, Acharya Shunya, or type in Ayurveda, Ayurveda, Lifestyle Wisdom, and it will come up. I'm happy to tell you, Sharon, that it's been a bestseller ever since it came out within 2 weeks. It's doing very well.
Bravo.
Thank you.
I can say I know why. Plus, it's beautiful to look at.
I think you also played a role in it, in spreading the good word. So the book is doing well. And it's also available at Barnes & Noble. It's also available at Whole Foods, Pharmaca. So pretty much you can even walk in and buy the book if you don't even want to wait for the package to arrive. And my wisdom school is in California, in the Bay Area in Northern California. It's known as Vedika, Vedika Global.org. VedikaGlobal.org is our website. But, you know, if you want to connect with me at my school, you can study with me from any part of the world, dear listeners, because I have students from Australia to Ireland to India to everywhere, thanks to online teaching options. So I hope that you get motivated and want to just say hi to me.
Absolutely, because what I love about it is not only are you a beautiful person, but you make Ayurveda so approachable and easy to understand. I think oftentimes, when I was first exposed to it, it was so lofty that I got intimidated by it. And you bring it down to where it's easy to understand and it's in a doable way. And that's what I love about your teaching.
Yeah, because I think the first way that Ayurveda came into the West was a very academic way. And here are the 3 doshas, and learn this, and here's a list, and diagnose yourself, and here's a quiz. And I don't have any of that in my book because I work with people. And people are not meant to be self-diagnosing themselves. They're supposed to be falling in love with the rising sun. And that takes care of things. So let's keep it simple, and let's heal, and let's be happier, and let's ultimately become worthy of who we truly are, powerful, sovereign beings, Sharon. It's all about.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, my dear.
Thank you for inviting me. And, you know, I am like so enjoying talking to you because from the moment you started talking, I could see that your consciousness is as big as the universe, and I can just be myself with you, and I don't have to take care of you, and I can just, you know, we can together. I think our conversation will make a huge difference, a paradigm shift in our listeners' lives, and they'll just give them permissions today.
Oh, absolutely. Give yourself permission, guys. I think that was powerful, too. I had so many beautiful takeaways from today, as I always do, my dear. You're welcome back anytime. And everyone will have her website and everything on the blog there. So if you need to find the name of the book again and everything, we'll have that listed there on the blog at lifeinterruptedradio.com. Everyone, have a great adventure, whatever you're going to do this weekend. And as always, join me next Friday night for another fun episode of the Autoimmune Hour. And enjoy.
The information provided on lifeinterruptedradio.com is for educational purposes only. What you hear, read, and see on Life Interrupted Radio is based on experience only. The information presented here should never be used for any legal, diagnostic, or treatment purposes. Always seek sound legal, medical, and or professional advice regarding any problems, conditions, and any of the recommendations you see, hear, or read here on Life Interrupted Radio. You've been listening to Life Interrupted Radio. To learn more, listen to other shows, and gain free resources that can help empower your life, be sure to stop by lifeinterruptedradio.com.